Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. Welcome. It's great to start with such a melody, a spiritually uplifting and quiet melody as we remember that it is Shabbat. As we remember that really what this morning is about is being together and praying together and learning together. I hope that as this service continues, you'll feel moved to sing along and to participate. And we are so excited and happy to be here with Kieran as he embraces this moment of coming of age and taking a new role in his Jewish community and in the world around him. We're proud to be with him and also just happy to be with community and with family and friends. It's great to be able to have some people who are close to Kieran and his family to be with us here in the sanctuary. We see some people are joining us over Zoom, which is great, and I know there are others who are watching over streaming. As we share this service together, I encourage you to follow along with the prayers. Of course, in the sanctuary, you can find the prayer book in the seat back in front of you. It's the thinner of these two books, or else if you're in the very front, it's underneath your legs. And if you're at home, I would encourage you to go to the Temple Road of Shalom website and the streaming site if you're not already there. And just above the video box where you might be watching this service is an icon that's called Mishkan Tefillah. It's the prayer book that we're using, and there's a PDF that you can click on, and you can turn to the pages and follow along with us. So before we begin with our prayers, we want to recognize that although, of course, this is a really important moment for Kieran, and it's an important moment for the Jewish people and for this whole congregation, it's also really important for Kieran's parents. And so we want to give them a chance, Nira and Craig, to stand with him for a moment and offer him their private blessing as he reaches this time. So the three of you can take off your masks now for a moment, and Kieran, you can keep yours off. And I invite the three of you to stand together and offer a prayer for him. And Cantor Zell will share a prayer for us as we pray silently.
You shall be a blessing. 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 And now, if you'll open your prayer books and join me on page 195, and please rise in body or spirit for the Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. And now we'd like to invite Kieran up to continue help leading us in prayer.
Please join me in Yotzer Or if you are comfortable with the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer Or uvrei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol Hameir la'aretz veladarim aleha berachamim uvtuvo mechadesh Bechol yom tamid maaseh v'reishit Ma'rabu ma'asecha Adonai kulam b'chochma asita Malach ha'aretz kinyanecha Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach maaseh yadecha Ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'aru chasela Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkechu lanu mehera le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer ha'me'orot. Our service continues on page 198 with the first paragraph of Ahava. Please join me. Ahava rabba ahavtanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Chemla yidola vitera chamalta aleinu ba'avor avotenu ve'imotenu shebatchu v'cha v'lamdem chokei hayim ken techonenu udlamdenu hamrachem rachem aleinu V'tein b'libeinu lehavin ulhaskil Lishmoa lilmod ulamed Lishmor v'lasot ulkayem Et kol divorei Talmud Toratzecha be'ahava. We continue in English responsively on the next page. O God, inspiration and guide for all, you have spoken in 1,000 tongues for us to hear. In every land, in every age, your children have heard you and imagined you in separate ways. And yet, O God, you are one, unifier of humanity. Thanks for the saviors.
Greatly you call lawgivers and prophets, the psalmists, the sages of Israel. Joyfully you remember that from the dawn of Israel's life, we would turn to you with high purpose.
May the teachings of our ancestors live on in our minds, and their passion for our righteousness stir our hearts. Help us to live so that our daily conduct reveals the beauty and wisdom of your truth. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Baruch Shem kevod malchuto le'olam
Please be seated. Please join me as we chant Ve'ahavta together on page 201. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha ub'chol nafshecha ub'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'aderech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot bein einecha v'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'hi etem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiyot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Please join me in the English. Love Adonai your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai, your God. Page 203. Sing the song of men and women, joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content. Her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
Kieran, you can go back to your seat. Who is like you, Adonai? Who is like you, Adonai? Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדי חינומך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל, Ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Please join me in rising in body or spirit and turn to page 205 for the Amidah. Adonai Sifatai Tiftachu Fi Agid Tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chastei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, mechayei hakol, ata rav lehoshia, morid hatal, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofeh cholim, umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar michamocha bal gevurot umidomelach melech memit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. We'll continue on page 208 with the Kedusha. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakatuv al yad neviecha, v'karaz Adonai Tsevaot, Meloch ol haaretz, kevodo. Adir, adirenu Adonai, Adonenu ma'adir shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu vehu Yashmienu, berochamav leinei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohayich Tzion, ledor vador, hallelujah. Ledor vador nagid godlecha, ulenetzach netzachim kedushatcha nagdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Page 210. To all generations we will make known your greatness, and to all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. I invite you to be seated. And if you are comfortable, to join me in the Hebrew on page 211, in the middle of the page, in this prayer about Shabbat. Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Vimotenu, Ritzei, Vimenuchatenu, Kadeshenu b'mitzvotecha, v'tein chelkenu b'toratecha, Sabe'enu mituvecha, v'samachenu b'yeshuatecha, v'tahel libenu, le'ovdecha be'emet, v'hanchilenu, Adonai Eloheinu, be'ava uvratzon, Shabbat kodshecha, v'yanuchu v'Yisrael, mekadeshei shemecha, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh HaShabbat. Would you join me responsively on page 212? On this Shabbat day, as you graciously receive our prayers, help us to hear your call. Grant us enough health to fulfill our duties and the compassion we need to attend to others. Teach us humility that we may perceive our own faults, and grant us the wisdom to be forgiving of others. Give us the courage to be true to our highest selves, and the charity to see the best that is in those around us. Give us patience enough not to become discouraged, hope enough to overcome all fears for the future, and faith enough to know your presence. O source of blessing, look with favor upon us. May our offerings be acceptable to you. We praise you, Adonai, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. And at the bottom of page 214, there is a prayer of thanksgiving. I invite you to join me in the Hebrew of each stanza, Modim Anachnu Lach, which mean we thank you, God. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations, Modim Anachnu Lach. For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons, Modim Anachnu Lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements, Modim Anachnu Lach. For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression, Modim Anachnu Lach. For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared, Modim Anachnu Lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom, Modim Anachnu Lach. For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose, Modim Anachnu Lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. On page 216, we have a prayer for peace, a prayer that is perhaps even more relevant, feels more relevant for us at this moment as we are in the wake of such violence in the land of Israel and Gaza. We're grateful for the calming that has happened in the last day or two. We pray for lasting peace. Let's read together on page 216 at the bottom. O God, may we never become complacent, faltering in our effort to build a world of peace. Let the nations know and understand that justice and right are better than dominion and conquest. May all come to see that it is not by might, nor by power, but by your Spirit that life prevails. And now we'll take a few moments for each of us after these communal prayers of thanksgiving and of peace and of Shabbat rest, for each of us to also pray silently and reflect on our own individual lives, our hopes and our obligations. Silent prayer.
May the one who brings peace bring peace down upon us, upon Israel, and upon the world. And now we come to the part of the service that Kieran gets to read the Torah. So we're going to invite Kieran and his family up, and Rabbi.
Yeah, so before we will ask Kieran to read from the Torah, we will enact the moment at Sinai of receiving of the Torah so that Kieran can take the Torah into his arms as a bar mitzvah. And we want to invite Marilyn and Ron, his grandparents, to join him along with his parents, standing at the foot of the stairs here to enact this passing. Craig will go and retrieve this beautiful and we received this Torah from the Carpathian Mountains, about 300-year-old Torah. It's a real and kosher Torah. We received it as a gift about 6 months before just a moment before you passed, Craig. We received it about a year and a half ago, just before coronavirus, and so we're so lucky to be able to have this Torah that families can pass themselves. The reason I stop you is because we're gonna actually do this passing while Cantor Zell sings the first prayer of the Torah service for us. And so you will pass this tradition down, and you'll wait until after we're done with the prayer before you hand it into Kieran's arms. And I'd ask everybody if you would rise along with us for this moment of the Torah service.
My
Kieran, may you cherish.
You can take your
I'm
mask
gonna
off.
take this. Kieran, may you cherish the message of this Torah. It is a guidebook passed down from generations of Jews before you who have kept Judaism alive. We take great pride this day in your acceptance of the Torah. This responsibility requires strength, knowledge, commitment, and love. Today you have brought these qualities to the Jewish people and therefore are part of the link of the chain of Jewish tradition. May you embrace Torah your whole life.
Wonderful. And if everyone will stay up there, we're going to say the first few prayers of the Torah service, and then Craig, you can replace the Torah after we've done that. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Gadlul Adonai iti, Uneromema Shemo Yachdav. Thank you, Craig. You can replace the Torah. Kieran and Nira, you can go over to the left podium. And Ron and Marilyn, you can actually go over to the right podium. Oh, you'll stand with him?
You can
Okay.
be on Kieran's right for the Aliyah, and right.
The new no pods thing. Okay.
Craig, if you would take the Torah cover and place it in the stand next to you. And then we will invite Kieran to share with us your introduction explaining the Torah portion. Everyone can be seated.
The Torah portion for this Shabbat that I will be reading is called Naso. It comes from the book of Numbers, and my Hebrew reading begins with chapter 6, verse 13. In this portion, Moses and Aaron blessed the people with the famous priestly benediction. That blessing is still used for us today.
Wonderful. And so we're going to call up your grandparents, Ron and Marilyn, for the first Aliyah.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher borach banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
V'zot Torat HaNazir b'yom milot yemei nizro yavi oto el petach ohel moed v'hikriv et korbano la'Adonai keves ben shnato tamim echad leola v'chavsa achat bat shnata תמימה לחטאת, ועל לחטאים לשלמים, וסל מצות, סולת חלות בלולות בשמן, ורקיקי מצות משוחים בשמן, ומנחתם ונזקיכם, והקריב הכהן לפני אדוני, ועשה את חטאתו ואת עולתו, ואת העיל יעשה זבח שלמים לאדוני על סל המצות, ועשה הכהן את מנהתו ואת נזקו.
Beautiful job. Ron and Marilyn, you can go ahead and say the second blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emes. V'chayei olam nota b'tzrochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you so much, Ron and Marilyn. You can go ahead and have a seat. And Craig and Nira, if you'd like to come to the other side of Kieran and go ahead and say the blessings.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
V'gilach hanazir petach ohel moed et rosh nizro v'lakach et se'ar rosh nizro v'natan al ha'esh asher tachat zevach hashlamim v'lakach hakohen et hazroa b'shelah min ha'ayil v'chalat matzah achat min hasal or kik matzah echad v'natan al kapei hanazir achar hitgalcho et nizro v'henif otam hakohen tnufa lifnei Adonai kodesh hu lakohen al hazeh hatnufa ve'al shok hatruma ve'achar yishte hanazir yayin zor Torah hanazir asher yidor korbano la'Adonai al nizro milvad asher tasig yado kefi nidro asher yidor ken yaseh al Torah nizro.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Greg and Neri, you can stay up there. And for the final and third aliyah, we'll call our Bar Mitzvah by his Hebrew name for the first time. Ya'amod, 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 Habachur Bar HaMitzvah, Avraham ben Nira v'Craig l'aliyah LaTorah. You can go ahead and say the blessings whenever you're ready.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber el Aharon ve'el banai lemor. Ko tevarechu et bnei Yisrael amor lahem. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. V'samu et shmi al bnei Yisrael va'ani avarachem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Beautiful, beautiful job, Kieran. You can take a big, deep breath because you're done all the Hebrew. Woohoo! So now we'd like to invite Shay up to cover the Torah as we sing one more blessing and as Kieran moves to the other podium to prepare for his speech. Vezot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai.
The theme of my Torah portion is the Nazirite voluntary vow that a person would take to give up some important things for a period of time, usually a year, in order to make their lives better and also to help them become better people. During this time, a Nazirite would not be allowed to do certain things, like drinking wine or shaving their head. The message from this is that it is important for people to be ready to give up something for the greater good. This can be for the greater good for their community or for something that will make their lives richer and more meaningful. There are many other examples of people giving up things for the greater good of the community or themselves. One example is the Civil Rights Movement, in which prominent Black leaders fought against laws restricting the rights of African Americans. In one of the biggest events in the Civil Rights Movement, Brown versus Board of Education, the father of a Black third grader sued the Topeka Board of Education because they would not let his daughter attend the all-white school, which is only 7 blocks away, as opposed to the all-black school, which is over a mile away. He risked being killed, receiving death threats after filing the lawsuit. The case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, where they ruled in favor of Brown. Another big event was the March on Washington, led by Martin Luther King. 500,000 people of different races, ages, and genders marched in the city of Washington. It was also where Dr. King gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. Later, Dr. King was killed because of his proud fight and sacrifice for the civil rights of all Black people. Today, the civil rights movement has been taken up by the modern-day Black Lives Matter movement. Last summer, after the high-profile killings of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, peaceful protesters all over the U.S. made their voices heard. Famous athletes were also very active and outspoken all summer. NBA players were very upset when they saw such disturbing things. However, they were not allowed to leave the bubble in Disney World, where the season had resumed, so they could not participate in the season. They did, however, hold their own form of protest in the bubble by suspending games for a couple of days. The COVID pandemic has brought tremendous sacrifice globally for over a year now. Physically, people in countries all over the world have worn masks, kept socially distant, and obsessively washed and sanitized their hands, as we tried to help limit the spread of the disease as much as we could. Families have been hunkering down in their houses since so many parents are working at home and kids are attending school virtually. During the pandemic, a lot of families have not been so lucky as mine, with so many people losing their jobs, and that is where people have helped by volunteering time to help put together food donations and collect money to help people eat during this time. Another way that people have sacrificed is by giving their time to help comfort people who are having an extra hard time emotionally. Now, with the approval of several COVID vaccines, we are all looking forward to getting a little bit of normal back in our lives. Back in March, we started a hybrid schedule for school, and it has been nice to be able to walk to school and be back in the school building again. The weather is getting nice again, so I can meet my friends in the park more often. We still wear masks everywhere, but it feels like the sacrifice was all worth it. But the best parts of the sacrifice during the pandemic are that none of my family got sick with COVID, and with vaccine approvals, I am finally able to see my grandparents and cousins today, after more than a year to have them celebrate here to celebrate my Bar Mitzvah. Speaking of my Bar Mitzvah, I have done some sacrificing to get here today. I have put in hours and hours practicing all of the prayers in my Torah portions, first just sounding out the letters and the words, and then learning the chants. It has been weird doing almost everything online, so I am really glad that I am able to have this service here in the sanctuary with you. I have to admit that all of this has been totally worth missing a few minutes a day of doing something that I might enjoy more. Finally, I would like to thank some people. First, my tutor, Mrs. Feder, who taught me all of the prayers in the Torah portion. I would also like to thank my parents for helping me stay on track with practicing Hebrew, so I did not fall behind. I would like to thank my brother Shay for being a great older brother, even though he can be very annoying sometimes. I am so happy to have my grandparents here to celebrate today, and also to have so many cousins able to be here. It has been a long year and a half not seeing any of you. I would like to thank everyone here, as well as people watching online. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Wonderful job, Kieran. So great. You did just as good a job in English as you did in the Hebrew. Why don't you go ahead and have a seat so that I can look at you too while I just say a few words of congratulations and maybe a little bit more about the Torah portion. How do you feel? Good? Now that you're finished? Great job. You spoke so well about this very personal and individual aspect of the Torah portion, the Nazirite vow, and what it means to make a personal sacrifice. The Nazirites made a sacrifice very much for themselves so that they could become better people and reach a higher level of spirituality. But of course, that makes them more ready to act in their community. And you, in your speech, talked so much about what that means to be a Jew and a person of this world to whom community is important, and to whom it's important to make the community a better, fuller, more just and peaceful place. And there's another part of this Torah portion that is really beautiful and that we're going to be enacting in just a few minutes, in front of with the open ark, and giving you a blessing. It's the blessing that God handed down to Aaron and Moses to give to the people. It's the blessing that asks God to provide for each of us safety and security. May God bless you and keep you. Prosperity. May God always turn God's face to you and be gracious to you. And peace and wholeness. May God give you peace. We use this blessing so much today. It's a blessing that's actually very present in Christian and Muslim tradition as well. We use it for very personal moments, like becoming Bar Mitzvah, which we'll do in just a minute, and like also the moment of becoming married. We share this blessing at weddings, and we use it for a baby naming or a bris. But even though, and it's also used for the moment of the Shabbat blessings on Friday evening. Some people don't know this, but it's a wonderful ritual to incorporate into your Friday evening Shabbat blessings, right between the candles and the kiddush over the wine, to invoke this blessing. Parents invoke it for children. So these are all very personal moments. But it's important to remember that when God handed this blessing down to Aaron and Moses, it was for them to give to the entire Jewish people. In fact, when you had moments of ritual in front of the tabernacle in the wilderness, or later on by the priests in front of the temple in Jerusalem, you had many, many, many people gathered, and they would all receive together this blessing. Another interesting thing to know about the priestly blessing is that today, for us as Reformed Jews, it's not even priestly anymore. We call it the priestly blessing, but it's really something that not only rabbis and cantors, but anyone can offer this blessing. And I think it's a symbol of a teaching in Judaism that this is really for all of us to impart towards each other, that Judaism is for all of us to interact with and to bring to the world in our actions, to making the world a better place. And that not only do we offer this as a blessing, that we say words and we hope that God will invoke them and bring them to reality, but we are partners with God in bringing these blessings to the world. And Kieran, when you just taught us what you thought about what the Nazirite vow can mean to us today, you really taught us that in speaking about civil rights, equal treatment of everyone, and equal respect of everyone, and providing for everyone and sharing what we have in the world. And I think it's an important aspect of embracing the Torah, which you did a few minutes ago, that you took the Torah from the hands of your parents and your grandparents. And part of that is adopting for yourself a set of traditions and rituals. But of course, a very big part of it is adopting a set of commandments and a covenant with God and with your community. Sometimes we say that the most central commandment in the Torah is, in a different Torah portion, love your neighbor as yourself. But I think if we understand this priestly blessing as a blessing in which we are partners with God in bringing all these things to our community and the world around us, we could really think of this blessing as the core of Torah. And your embracing of this Torah portion as part of the whole Torah, as you embracing your obligation along with the rest of us to be partners with God in ensuring that everyone around us is safe and well, this first blessing, that we share our prosperity and we share the good and the blessings that we have with each other in community and around the world, and that we do our part by our actions to bring peace to the world and bring wholeness to the lives of people whose lives are broken, and we bring wholeness to a broken world. So it's an honor for me to just be a part of helping you to embrace that tradition. And I'm grateful to you to sharing with all of us your vision of that, because it's really a task for all of us to do. Cantor Zell and I are going to share that blessing with you now on behalf of all of us, because it is still a personal blessing that we wish for you as well. And I want to invite you to come up with Nira and Craig and Shay. You can all take your masks off for this moment and come and stand at the foot of the steps facing us for this blessing. I'd ask everybody in the sanctuary, if it's comfortable for you, to rise. May God bless you and keep you. Kieran, may God always turn God's face to you and be gracious to you. May God always shine a light upon you and give you a sense of shalom, of wholeness and of peace, a sense that comes from a knowledge that your family and your community is with you and behind you, a sense of a connection with something beyond, with the divine. And may God also fill you with a sense of that obligation to bring that blessing to those around you, those you know in relationship, and to the community of the whole world that needs wholeness and peace. Shalom. Amen.
Amen.
Stay here.
Taking your place in an enduring line. This is the day that you stood up to say our tradition is mine. You have now read the Torah. It's been passed on to you. It's our law and our story, but each telling is new. It is said we stood at Sinai, and today you know you're there. You're the promise of a people, a blessing and a prayer. Taking your place in a resilient line. This is the day that you stood up to say our tradition is mine. You have now held the Torah, forged a link to the past. You're the face of our future and the reason we last. La'alechet bidrachav velishmor mitzvotav kol hayamim. May you walk in God's ways, and may all of your days be blessings. It is said we stood at Sinai, and today you know you're there. You're the promise of a people, a blessing and a prayer. You're the promise of a people, a blessing and a prayer. And now we'd like you all to stay standing, pick up your prayer books, and turn to page 282, the Aleinu. And you guys can stay right where you are. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula le'otzer b'reishit, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Please be seated. At this time in the service, we've had such joyous moments listening to Kieran chant Torah, lead us in prayer, and we've celebrated. And so in that celebration, we need to remember those who we love, who are no longer with us. And on Kieran's special day, we remember Carol Forman, whose yahrzeit is this week, Nat Forman, and Kieran's great-grandmother, Sylvia Hurwitz, whom he did know. So we would also like to bring into mind anyone else that we are thinking of on this day, and we will recite the Kaddish, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 294, and please rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chaye echon uvyom echon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shmei d'kurisha, b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'yimru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, amen. Please be seated. So now, Kieran, that you've done all the work, now is when we get to tell you about the presents that you're going to get. Just grab special things from under here. From the women of TRS, you will receive a copy of our Reform Movement's home prayer book, in the hopes that as you go throughout your life, you will have occasions to use it as you celebrate Jewish holidays and with your family. You will receive an envelope with 2 gift certificates. That's this. And the first is from NIFTY, the North American Federation of Temple Youth, to use towards travel in Israel during your high school years. And some of my travels to Israel have been some of my most memorable and beautiful moments, so I hope that you will use it in good health. The second is a gift certificate from our youth committee and trustee towards youth group events, and an all-important travel mug is in here. Maybe you can take it to Israel. And finally, from the clergy, you'll receive a Kiddush cup, and it's our hope that anytime you celebrate Shabbat with your family at home, you will use this and remember what a special day this was. You will also receive this special certificate, Bar Mitzvah diploma, essentially, that was designed by a temple member and it certifies that you did the work and that you are officially Bar Mitzvah. And so that is our gift to you. And I'll hand those to you after the service.
And so now we will conclude the service with a closing song and a benediction. We're so grateful for all of you who have joined us, not only in the sanctuary, but over Zoom and over streaming. I know that Kieran and his family looks forward to connecting with you, and Kieran receiving a mazel tov from each of you in different ways. And so let's finish with celebration. And if you're in the sanctuary and you're comfortable, you can rise for this closing song on page 322 in Kelohenu. There is none like you, God, Ein Kelohenu. We are grateful to you, God, for giving us the Torah, for giving us these traditions and teachings to help us to make our lives more full and more rich, and to help us to bring more